So over the last year, I've been working to tidy up my multiple pensions that I've had from previous employees. It's been quite a long road, but I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now. So in this video, I'm going to cover the performance of those pensions, what I've been doing to maximize my state pension, and what I intend to do next. So last month I walked through the major changes coming to UK pensions in the coming months and years, including the changes introduced by Rachel Reeves on inheritance tax. And there's a link above where you can see that video. So in this month's update, I'm going to go through the changes to my self-invested personal pension and my state pension and what I intend to do before the end of the tax year to be ready and hit the ground running before the 25-26 tax year starts. So let's start with my self-invested personal pension update. Over the last year, I've been consolidating my pensions, essentially just to make them easier to manage and reduce fees and hopefully get a better return on those investments. The overall value of my SIPP was $231,682 last month, but this month, unfortunately, we've seen a sharp drop. Value now is $212,898, so a reduction of $18,784. Of course, while reductions in value are never really welcome, we should expect fluctuations. That's just part of being in the market. In fact, fluctuations are all but guaranteed. Although I do feel that the reasons for the fluctuations are down to market uncertainty at this point, and unfortunately that's largely down to the current US administration. Now this pension is much lower than I'd like it to be at this point anyway. I was working overseas for many years, and when I returned, my pension contributions were tapered to only £10,000. My pensions been underfunded for quite a number of years in favour of my general investment accounts and more recently ISAs. So when I got back, I wanted to get on top of my pensions, and I started by consolidating them from multiple previous employees, which I've now done all consolidated into the Vanguard self-invested personal pension. So to fund this Vanguard SIPP, I transferred £20,000 from a pension or previous employee's pension in October 2024, and then consolidated a further 2 pensions for about £184,000 in November 2024. I then also added £60,000 last year, and that was funded £48,000 as direct contribution from me, and an additional £12,000 tax relief from the HMRC. And since the last update, I've now received that £12,000 tax relief from the UK government. Thank you very much. And this has been invested 90% in the FTSE Developed World ETF, VHVG, and 10% in the FTSE Emerging Market ETF, VFEG. So with that background, let's dig into my portfolio and take a closer look at some of my individual holdings and how they performed this month. So as I'm not going to be taking any proceeds from this SIPP for another 15 or so years, I've invested in 3 globally diversified funds or ETFs. When I transferred one pension, it was put directly into the FTSE All World Global Index. Then when I consolidated further pensions, I'd already investigated a better way to invest with lower fees. And so a small but meaningful improvement could be achieved by splitting the global index and identified funds which would proxy that fund at a lower cost. This I did by combining 2 ETFs, the Vanguard Developed World and the Emerging Markets ETFs, split 90% with the developed world and 10% with the emerging markets respectively. And if you want to understand a bit more about this approach, so you can click on the link above where I talk about this strategy. So looking at the results, the developed market ETF has had £195,000 invested, just over, the majority of which was invested from the 11th of November 2024. This has dropped to £188,000 thereabouts, a reduction of £6,500. The emerging market ETF has had £5,200 invested, the majority of which was invested on the 11th of November 2024 also. This dropped to £5,200, a reduction of £76. Then when we look at the FTSE Global All Cap Index Fund, it's had £19,000 just over invested since the 15th of October. It's now worth around £19,000, so a reduction of just £267. So overall, the portfolio has decreased by almost £7,000, a reduction of nearly 4%. So should I be concerned? Well, not really. Market drops are pretty regular. Drops of 10% or more happen every 1 to 5 years, and drops of over 20% happen every 5 years or so. The overall trend for the market is up and to the right, and as these investments are for the long term, it doesn't concern me that there's shorter term fluctuations. And if you want to see how markets act and what you can do in a crash, what strategies and tactics you can adopt, then take a look at this video above where I go through that. Now, going forward, and in relation to investments into a self-invested personal pension, I'll look at liquidating some of my general investment account before the end of the tax year to both tax harvest and bed and pension to ensure I have the full £60,000 invested in my pension as early as I can in the next tax year. I expect to continue to add £60,000 per year for the next 12 years, maybe 15 years, which will make the Vanguard pot closer to £1 million, subject to how the market performs, but also subject to any new pension legislation that may come down the pipe. In addition to this Vanguard SIPP, I also have a defined benefit scheme with Aviva, which has a transfer value of around £130,000. Now, I'm not expecting much from this in terms of yearly pension. The quotes I've already received suggest that I'll get about £3,000 per annum in retirement at 60. It is index linked, and over time that should increase. And as I won't be taking those payments until 67, I should probably expect that annual payment to be close to £4,000 or £5,000. It would of course be nice to transfer this pension and put it under my own management, but for a defined benefit scheme, any transfer amount over 30,000 requires an independent financial advisor. This is so someone does not transfer out of a scheme which has particular protected benefits. Therefore, I'll be leaving this pension with Aviva. It's a very poor return, but it is protected, and it's almost a nice balance to the higher risk investments I've got in my SIPP. Finally, let's move on to the state pension. During the last few months, I've been seeking to increase the number of years of national insurance coverage I've got against my state pension. Essentially, I was short by a number of years as I worked overseas. So I checked, and after various calls with DWP staff, I was able to top up the missed years before the upcoming April deadline. I needed to top up contributions through Class 2 national insurance as I was working overseas. And they were about actually 4 times cheaper than the normal Class 3 national insurance. So now I have the full 35 years national insurance contribution. As the deadline is fast approaching, and if you want to top up years, I would suggest you do this. There's likely to be few times where the payback of an investment is so good, especially if you're close to retirement. So right now, until the 5th of April 2025, you can make voluntary contributions for the tax years 16 and 17 or 17 and 18. But after this date, you lose that opportunity, that window closes. And we should consider the benefits of having a fully funded state pension. State pensions are triple locked. So the current maximum payment of £11,502, it's about 40 a year, will continue to increase by the highest of inflation, average earnings growth, or 2.5%. In accordance with this, the basic state pension will rise 4.1% from April 2025. That will result in pensioners receiving up to £470 more each from the 2025-2026 tax year to £11,973. So with me topping up my national insurance contributions and that costing only a few £100s and buying me additional guaranteed income in the 12 to 15 years time, it goes a long way to counteracting the market reductions that we've seen. Well, at least that's what I'm telling myself to make myself feel better. Feel better? So if I take all these elements into account, my personal pension and the contributions that I'll make over the coming years, the inflation-linked defined benefit scheme that I've got with Aviva, and the triple lock state pension, I suspect that I'll be able to comfortably withdraw anywhere between £60,000 or £70,000 per year once I reach 67. And at that time, if I don't need all that income, what I'll do is seek to make normal expenditure out of income payments to my daughter and family members to mitigate the risk of inheritance tax. Of course, all of this will be subject to market returns and any government policy changes that may be hoisted upon the population in the future. If you do want to know a bit more about how you can reduce inheritance tax, I did create a video which you can see linked above. It goes through a number of techniques, tactics and strategies that you can use to reduce inheritance tax. Now in the meantime, I'll be withdrawing from my other accounts, either my cash accounts or cash assets or my general investment account. And in the round, this matches the optimal order for withdrawals. That will usually maximize your portfolio withdrawal rate. I created a video on that order of withdrawals, and you can see that above. So I hope you found this portfolio update helpful. As always, I'm sharing my journey, the good, the bad, and at the moment, the ugly, in hope that the lessons I learned could help you with your journey as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on any questions you may have in the comments below. And if you're enjoying the content of this video, please consider liking and subscribing and sharing with anyone else you think would find value. Don't forget to check the links in the description for some great resources. Thank you for watching.